good morning. Good to be back speaking today, and I miss you, and welcome to those of you who join us, look in and watch and listen. And I hope you're all doing pretty well in this continual pandemic. I'm going to speak this morning on God, or connecting with God. And in thinking about it, a question comes to mind: how did the people in the Bible connect with God? And in thinking about it and reading the Bible and remembering Bible stories, I realised, for example, in the Old Testament and in the New, people didn't connect with God. God connected with them. Let me give you some examples. There's Abraham, and one day God connects him. He's an old man and he's married to an elderly woman past childbearing age, and God says, Abraham, your wife's going to have a baby, and through you and your offspring I'm going to bless the whole world. Think of Jacob. He's travelling, and one night he sleeps in the open air, and God speaks to him in a dream. Joseph, you remember, he's one of a big family, and God spoke to him through, and they were life-changing dreams. And then there was Moses. Moses was actually, whether he knew it or not, doing a runner from God. He'd been running for decades, and he was out one day looking after somebody else's sheep, and a bush burst into flames, and it didn't just consume itself. Moses goes over to see it, and God speaks to him. And then what about Samuel? As a little boy, his mother gave him to the priest at Shiloh. There's a big background behind this, and they were in the central shrine, and Samuel's gone to bed this particular night, a young lad, and God calls his name. Samuel, Samuel. I remember as a boy listening to old Welsh preachers preaching it, and when they were telling their story, they were saying, Samuel, Samuel. It's all good oratorical stuff, but the truth is, God spoke to Samuel in the night. And take the New Testament. It was Jesus who took the initiative, and he spoke to people and called people with an irresistible call. So I'm answering the question: how did God speak to people in the Bible? How did people speak to God in the Bible? Well, God spoke to them. Now, the next question is this: does God connect with us today? Well, the first way to answer that is to say this: yes, but first you must get rid of what I call the wrong narratives, fake narratives. Our nation abounds with fake narratives. So, for example, here's the first one. It doesn't happen that way today. That's a wrong narrative. Get rid of it. That's if you want to encounter God, and God encounter you. And then there's another one. Well, excuse me, we live in a sophisticated society, as if that would hinder an encounter with God. It's the wrong narrative. Get rid of it. And then they say, well, today the Bible, is subject to the scrutiny of religious, academic people. Listen, it's the wrong narrative. Get rid of it. And then here's a good one. People say, well, God will never encounter me, because if he only knew my background and the sin I've carried and I've tried to confess things. Listen, that's the wrong narrative. Get rid of it. And finally, people say, we can't really expect supernatural things these days. That's a wrong narrative. Get rid of it. So, can God contact with us today? Can we encounter God today? Get rid of the wrong narratives. Listen, let me remind you, life is like a coin. Right, here's a coin. There are two sides to a coin, and life's like that. On the one side of the coin, there are 4 words, and on the other side of the coin, there are 2 words. The 4 words on the one side of the coin is this: the sovereignty of God. That is 4 words, isn't it? The sovereignty of God. On the other side of the coin, there are the 2 words: human responsibility. Now, I'm answering this question. Can we connect with God, and does God connect with us? Think of these 2 sides of the coin. Now, at this point, I want to tell you a brilliant story that's recorded in the first book of the Bible, Genesis. It's Genesis 24. And Abraham, who now has a son called Isaac, and he wants a wife for Isaac. So he calls his senior servant, and they'll call him a civil servant, his senior servant, and he tells him where he wants him to go, and he says, I want you to look for a wife and bring back a wife for Isaac. This man loads his camels and off he goes. And I don't know how long the journey was, but eventually he comes to the edge of a town or a village, hamlet, and there's a watering hole there, a spring, where people were watering their livestock and watering sheep. And he watches a girl coming with her flock of sheep. I don't know how big the flock was. And he prays, and he says this, he says, God, I'm going to ask this girl if she'll give me a drink of water. And if she says me yes, and then adds, and I'll water your camels also, she's going to be the woman, the wife for Isaac. Sure enough, he says to the woman, could you give me a drink of water? They're total strangers. And she says yes. And then she adds, and I'll draw water for your camels also. Now, he didn't declare his hand to her just then, but he prayed inwardly. I don't think he prayed out loud. And he said something absolutely brilliant. And this is Genesis 24, verse 27. I'm quoting the authorized version. And he says this, I, being in the way, the Lord led me. Now this is the other side of the coin, the 2 words, human responsibility. God is one side of the coin, the sovereignty of God. He says, I, being in the way, the Lord led me. He'd done exactly what his boss, Abraham, told him to do. And he puts himself in a position where he recognizes that he is in the way of God. He's fulfilling his human responsibility aspect. I'm not saying he worked it out like that, because he hadn't met me. But he is there, and he said, I, being in the way, the Lord led me. Listen, do you want to be in contact with God and God in with you? Well, get in the way of God. I don't mean that God comes along and he says, oh, get out of the way, I'm in a hurry today. Oh, excuse me, I want to pass by. I mean, where God is, you be. Get in the way of God. Now, there's another question. Then, how does God connect to me with us today? Well, of course, there are many ways. Certainly through dreams. I've had some incredible dreams that have changed my life. I'm not kidding you. Through visions, through prophecies, through nature. But primarily, God speaks to us through the Bible. The Bible is a reminder for some of you, perhaps new for others of you. In my saying this, the Bible is God speaking to us. When we pray, we talk to God. When we read the Bible, God talks to us. Let me say half a dozen things about reading the Bible. Read it with expectation of a supernatural, cataclysmic event that will take place in your life. Secondly, saturate yourself in reading the Bible. Not just a quick 5 minutes, touch your cup, say, that's it, Father, for the day. I urge you, I beg you, if you are serious about contacting with God, saturate yourself in the Bible. Read it. I know we go through busy phases, and I may be talking to people who've got small children and so on. You say, Ben, my kids hardly let me have time to go to the loo. They're following me in there and so on, and I've got no time, and I go shopping, etc., etc. Listen, nevertheless, seek God, ask God, pay any price to saturate yourself in the Bible. Read chunks of the Bible. Thirdly, believe what you read. I'm answering the question, does God contact us today? Can we communicate with him today? Yes, we need read the Bible with expectation. Saturate ourselves in it. And thirdly, believe what you read. And then fourthly, obey what you believe. That's part of the effort we have to make. Just obey what we believe. And then, number 5, enjoy what you obey. There's nothing worse than miserable Christians being around, but there's nothing worse than the miseries hindering us from connecting with God. Because when we're full of miseries, we're full of ourselves. And we are wanting to be full of God. We want God to connect with us, do we not? We need God to connect with us. We're desperate for God to connect with us. The world needs God to do the connecting. And we are in the front line of this. So enjoy what you obey. And sixthly, when you obey this saturation that's going on in the Bible, fulfilling human responsibility, when you obey it personally. Don't think, that's a good one for my husband, that's a good one for my wife. Oh, hey, that statement's a good one for Joe Bloggs. He should have been in church this morning to hear that little lot. No, listen, when you saturate yourself in the Bible, obey it personally. Now you may say, of all this, Ben Davis, this is hard work. You say, read with expectation, saturate yourself, believe what you read, obey what you believe, enjoy what you obey. It's jolly hard work. Well, there's a lot of preaching today. I do it, Paul does it, others do it in this church. We preach about the grace of God, the mercy of God, the love of God, the forgiveness of God, the overwhelming commitment of God. We tell people, God is faithful and God is kind and God is long-suffering, and yes, and God is just wanting to bless us, and you reap what you sow, and God's always a good God, and he's unchangeable and he's unfathomable, and it's all wonderful. That still holds true. But what holds true also is human responsibility. You want God to connect with you? Get in his way. Stay in his way. Let him know, here I am again. I'm on your toes, God, because I want you to get right in my life with a supernatural touch. Does God connect with us today as he did with Old Testament people, New Testament people, intertestamental people, and the history ever since? Of course he does, because God has no favourites and he's forever connecting. He's looking for people who'll spend time in his way long enough to hear it and implement it. Here's my blessing for the week. I'm strong, but here's my blessing for this coming week. God, help us that we will help ourselves and saturate ourselves in the reading of the Bible, so that the Bible saturates into us. Hey, God bless you. Have a brilliant week.